As President Biden is landing in Portland, this is a live picture from the Air National Guard base at PDX, where Air Force One is landing as we speak. The president is coming to Portland for the afternoon to talk about infrastructure. He's going to be giving a speech this afternoon, and for more on what's going to be happening over the next few hours, we want to go live to Pat Doris, who is covering the president's visit. Pat?
Well, Brenda, I'm inside the hangar where the president will be speaking, and I can tell you it's somewhat of a who's who, as you would expect, with especially the Democratic side of politics. I was able to spend some time with the former President Peter Courtney. Also, Kate Brown is here, Congressman Blumenauer, Congresswoman Bonamici. There's just everybody here, and I think everybody's hoping for a chance to probably shake the president's hand and get a picture with him. One of the interesting things is, will Oregon really get anything out of this visit, or is it just a nice backdrop for the president? And it looks like the president is on the ground now with Air Force One. I don't know if you're seeing me or the plane, but hopefully you're seeing the plane, because that's much more interesting. But I'll also tell you there is a small city that moves with the president, or at least it seems like it, but they have armored vehicles that look like Suburbans, except they're bigger than that are flown in on a huge jet called a Starlifter, and that basically allows them to take their stuff anywhere they want in the country. So that is here. We walked by a couple of the classic armored limousines as well, with the American flags on it, and quite a bit of stuff has been brought in now. And I think we were just looking at the back of Earl Blumenauer's head there as they wait at the bottom of the tarmac for the president to get off. I'll tell you, we were told that Marine Drive was cleared a little bit in advance of the president, some of the homeless camps there. And I did have a chance to drive down Northeast 33rd, which kind of leads and bisects with Marine Drive near the airport. And I don't know if this is a result of what happened on Marine Drive, that clearing, but I've never seen so many RVs and campers and vans and cars on that stretch of Northeast 33rd near Marine Drive. So definitely some people have been moved around, I think. And it's been interesting too, Brenda, as we've asked our viewers, what do you want to hear from the president? One of the first things that came in was they want the president to drive by and see the homeless situation that's going on in downtown Portland and in some of the other areas around Delta Park. And they would like to hear from him what the federal government can do, if anything, to help. Others are wondering about federal housing policies that may make housing a little bit more affordable. So lots of folks, I think, watching and waiting and expecting. Looks like Senator Merkley is there at the end of the line waiting for the president as well. But Brenda, we know that he's here. Also, he'll be talking about a tarmac, not the tarmac, that's the edge, but the runway, one of the runways at PDX, which I believe he's going to be talking about being seismically upgraded. That's in advance of the Cascadia mega earthquake that we all hope never arrives, but may well in one day. And the argument being that that is the one that is the south runway, farthest from the river, farthest from Marine Drive. It runs parallel along with the north runway as you drive along Marine Drive. If you look over to the airport, you see the north runway, but then you see there's all the buildings for the concourses and all that, and then on the far side is the south runway. So
Pat,
that's the one that we'll be talking about and hearing the president talk about, I suspect, today. But it looks sunny out there. I can tell you, while it may be sunny, it's not warm. There is definitely a chilly Oregon breeze blowing there. And just a lot of folks gathered and waiting for the president. I think we're zooming in. That's probably Governor Kate Brown. I was stuck in the security line. That is Governor Brown. I was stuck there as she and many others were able to come in as you would want them to, come in front of the media, but that is what happened so far. All right, Brenda.
All right, Pat, tell me, can you hear me okay, Pat? We're having a little
Yes, I
audio.
can now,
Okay,
yes.
good. I was going to ask, and it happened before I even got a chance to ask, to get another view of that plane, Air Force One. I would say it is probably a nonpartisan opinion, regardless of which president from which party is on board. That is a master of technology. Air Force One is basically a flying fortress. A lot of people think of the airplane itself as Air Force One, but it is a radio call name, and any plane that the president is on is called Air Force One. And it is equipped with everything. It's a flying bunker, it's an office, the media and guests, the president himself and his people, they all fly on this. It can seat about 70 people. But Pat, wouldn't you say, I mean, it is kind of awe-inspiring to see the most powerful man in the world visit your town. Whether you love him or you hate him, it gets your attention.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, Brenda. The biggest question, I think, for a lot of viewers is this going to make any difference in my life? Is Oregon actually going to get anything out of this? Will there be any additional money, for example, from the federal government, which of course comes from taxpayers? But a lot of times these sorts of stops are really beautiful backdrops for any presidential candidate. But whether anything actually happens, I think, is a question that's still up in the air. You know, a lot of the politicians will say, well, it's very important for us to meet the president and his staff so that if something happens in a month or two, we're able to pick up a phone and talk to that person that we met while they were in Portland. The thing is, the staff and all those folks are meeting dozens of people in all kinds of cities all the time. So whether there's actually a deep personal connection or not, I'm going to be a little skeptical on that one. But it is good for the president to come to the Northwest. He was here as part of the Obama administration. And in fact, I saw him give a speech, I believe at the convention center. And it was the first time I'd ever seen him speak live. And I got to tell you, it was one of the best speeches I've ever seen. It was better than the speeches that I've seen President Obama give in person as well. So he can be a very persuasive speaker. And I think that that'll be something that a lot of people here are going to be enjoying and looking forward to. But as far as if this is just a pretty backdrop or whether Oregon actually comes away with some specific things where they can say, oh, because the president was here, suddenly we've got funding for the I-5 bridge, for example, I don't think we're going to see that. Brenda?
But that is what a lot of supporters of that particular project are hoping, is that President Biden will say something about funding for that crossing between Oregon and Washington. And Pat, of course, everybody follows the national news, and Biden is visiting at a time that his poll numbers are dropping. Democrats, they're worried about inflation. Everything now is more expensive. They are concerned about that particular item and other things costing them control of Congress as we approach the 2022 midterms.
Sure, and I know that that is on a lot of people's mind, Brenda. This is a pretty safe state for the president and for Democrats in general. The 6th district, the new congressional district that we have, that will be an interesting one to watch because there's a lot of people running in that one, and that could be up for grabs. I know that a lot of people think that it sort of leans Democratic, but this midterm election will be an interesting time where things may not happen the way that we always think that they'll happen. So a lot of folks are going to be watching for that. But again, this is a real safe part of the country for the president to come to politically. And I think that, you know, the polls and inflation, that sort of thing, not going to be much of an issue here. Although certainly everybody does feel the impact of inflation and the rising gas prices, or the prices now that are not falling nearly as fast as we all think that they should. So, you know, I think it's also a nice chance for the president to get out and slap some backs and get some congratulations and have a very positive day as he swings through the Northwest. He's going to go to a Democratic fundraiser at the Portland Yacht Club on the Columbia River. That's going to be pretty fun. It's a gorgeous setting with a lot of very interesting people who will be there. I believe I heard the tickets start at $500 a piece, which is why schmoes like me are not going. But I think that it will be an interesting trip, and hopefully it'll be an enjoyable one. I mean, you would wish that on whichever president, Democrat, Republican, It doesn't matter. When they're coming out to your town, you hope that they have a good time.
So, Pat, I know you're tucked away there in the hangar, so let me just do a little play-by-play as we look at this live picture. Air Force One, they have rolled the big set of stairs up there. We will be waiting for the door of the airplane to open and President Biden to emerge. Folks there, dignitaries and others, Secret Service, military members will be waiting to greet the president as he walks down those stairs. You mentioned that fundraiser. Tickets start at $500, and I understand they go up to $36,500. So, as you mentioned, the Yacht Club, a very elite group of donors and supporters of the president. But here now, the doors are opening, and we'll see how long it takes President Biden to actually get up there. I'm going to move a little closer so we can see. One of the military members there kind of signaling. I don't know if he's saying anything to the people below, but they will bring that staircase up there, and we'll see him head down to the tarmac. He's also going up to Seattle, as you mentioned. He's not going to be in Portland for that long, maybe 3-4 hours tops. And then he'll head up to the Emerald City for more of the same. Pat, how many people would you say?
As far as trips go,
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, how many people do you
trips
think?
Go, I think for the public, this is going to be the.
The delay is
it's great to
killing
be on
us.
live TV and have a delay going, Brenda. I think for the public, a short trip like this is probably preferable if they're not going to be able to get to see him, and if he's not going to do a bunch of things. They would prefer that he perhaps stay here at the airport, do a quick trip out, but not tie up traffic in downtown. I talked with one person earlier this morning who talked about being stuck in traffic in sort of a gridlock. The last time the president was here, I believe it was President Obama, and as you would expect them to, the Secret Service and police shut off all the overpasses and all the side roads as the motorcade was going along. And while it moves quickly, there's a lot of that done in advance. So the fact that it's going to be quick, I think, is going to be something a lot of folks are appreciating. I believe, is that the president in the doorway there? No, that's, I'm looking at a monitor that's on delay, and we're seeing some of the staff there. But I've always wondered, too, what it would be like to fly across the country, Brenda, and then get to the door of your plane and have probably 20 cameras pointed at you as you're shaking off the 4 or 5 hour trip, and everybody's ready to see you at 100%. There's been a lot of times I've gotten off the plane, I felt like I'm 30%, and I'm sure glad no one's there to greet me.
I know, but it's not like he's flying commercial. That thing flies. I think Air Force One can travel about 600 miles an hour at top speed, which is almost the speed of sound. One of the fighter pilots, I know you've got a brother in the military who's a pilot, but one of the fighter pilots back in 9/11 was escorting then President Bush's plane and said he had to step on the gas to keep up with Air Force One during that particular flight. So, as I mentioned, Air Force One has all the amenities for the president when he travels. Not only does he have an office, he's got a suite, he has a bathroom with a shower. It's like he's at home almost. I mean, if you're going to travel, that is definitely, Pat, the way to do it.
Yeah, and I sort of feel like we've all been in there. If you've watched West Wing, you've seen the whole thing.
Here we go, Pat. Go back to that live picture. There you are. Pat, I'm going to interrupt you because President Biden with his aviators, no tie, walking down the staircase to greet the people here in Portland. Let's see what happens, what he's going to do. His big black armored limousine is blocking his view. It looks like he's speaking to one of the military members there as his escort, but that is a much better view. President Biden speaking to people there on the tarmac. We've got the dignitaries lined up. The delegation, the Oregon congressional delegation. We see Governor Kate Brown, of course. Let's see if we can maneuver around Earl Blumenauer, Ron Wyden, Jeff Merkley, Suzanne Bonamici, Kurt Schrader. The who's who, Peter DeFazio, is also there. He'll be retiring soon, but he is there to greet the president. When DeFazio walked up, I thought it was interesting to note he had a ball cap on, but I don't see anybody in the line with a ball cap anymore. Oh, I was wrong. From a distance, I thought the president did not have a tie on, but he's got a Democrat blue tie, I guess. I'm just greeting people and talking. Again, they'll all be at the fundraiser at the Yacht Club, and that is expected about 2 o'clock. He'll be raising campaign money for other Democrats in the state. And there he is, shaking hands with Suzanne Bonamici there. How many people would you say that you saw walking into the hangar and who will be listening to the president, Pat, as he makes his remarks today?
Well, I'd say there's about 200 people here, and it's sort of by invite only. So there are members of the, members of the military, a lot of members of the press, and members of various organizations that are very interested in seeing what the president has to say. People inside here either don't know or, well, let's just say they don't know that the president has touched down. There's music playing, people are chatting and catching up with old friends. I think it's interesting, again, one more time to talk about this runway seismic upgrade that they're talking about. They want to make sure that when the big one hits, that at least one of the runways is still going to be operable. And the idea being, I was asking someone from the airport, why not fix I-5 first? And I think what they said was the idea is almost think about Hurricane Katrina. If the big one hits, we're going to have resources flown in here, and that means you need to have a runway. And that south runway that they're going to upgrade is the longest runway, so it could handle the biggest jets like Air Force One. So that's why that's happening. There was some speculation about whether the president would talk about federal money for the I-5 bridge, and I'm not hearing much of that anymore. So I think that maybe is not going to happen today. And as far as the priority of things happening, you could certainly upgrade and rebuild a runway much faster than the I-5 bridge. That's something that I think is going to be 5 years minimum. So that is the main thing that Oregon will get from this, if there is that sort of thing, is that runway upgrade. Brenda?
Yeah, DeFazio there looking animated as he's talking to the president and the other congressional members of this delegation. You talked about different projects and whatnot, and the president will likely, some of the administration talking points do talk about the numbers, 400 bridges in Oregon, 1,300 miles of Oregon highway that are not in that great of shape. And they are pitching to the state and voters that transportation officials will be able to take care of some of those problems with an extra $1.2 billion for Oregon over the next 5 years. I don't know if you remember, I think it was last month, it was in late March, that the Oregon Transportation Committee, they voted on how to spend that money, and just some of the breakdown. It was $50 million for highway projects, $80 million for safety enhancements on main streets and school routes, $75 million for maintenance projects, $40 million to bolster the Oregon Department of Transportation's budget so they can work on these things. So a lot of money that will be doled out at some point. We don't know all the details of everything yet, the specifics, but look, Kate Brown and the president, he's leaning in, she's laughing. He really does know retail politics, right, Pat? That is part of the president's hallmark, is that one-on-one as he gets into one of those armored vehicles in his motorcade. All right, we'll look at that picture.
Yeah, Brenda, I think he may be one of the best I've ever seen at doing that, connecting with people, letting them know that he sees them and he cares about them and that they're important. He's probably, telling Kate Brown, I need you, to finish your term strong. Oregon is a key part of our midterms. They also might be talking about where they'd like to go to dinner tonight. I'm not sure.
Yeah, hard to tell with President Biden. We are as well hearing from Republicans. We'll be talking to them this afternoon because they certainly have a much different view of this and a different policy perspective and different priorities for the state. So we're working to get that side, their reaction to the president's trip here. But as we look live, he'll be taken off there in his motorcade. He's not really going to be going very far. Like you mentioned, not too much traffic impact. He'll be speaking in the hangar, then he'll be going down the road to the yacht club, then he'll be coming right back to the airport to fly up to Seattle.
I haven't been able to hear everything you've said, so I apologize if you've already covered this, but it might be interesting for folks to know that this is actually the other side of the airport that they're used to seeing as far as the commercial airport where you get on the flights for Alaska. This is on the other side where the Air Guard has its fighter jets and has big military transports that come in as well. So this is not impacting the commercial traffic or airplanes or people trying to get on the planes. I lived in Portland for a few years before I even realized that this base was out here. But when you hear the fighter jets screaming overhead, this is where they live. And they have an interesting job, by the way. They protect the coast and the skies from here all the way down to Klamath Falls, I believe, which is where there's another fighter base. And they can range as far down to California and up to Alaska. So these folks, when they get called for a mission, they are screaming out of here. And there's always one or two that are on alert 24/7. And I know they've had interesting times in years past anyway with Russian fighter bombers coming into the U.S. airspace off the coast of Alaska. So it's not like they just drill and train out here. They get involved in some very interesting things. Greta?
Absolutely, and as we continue to look live at this scene from the Air National Guard base, we're zooming in on that armored car. I found it interesting to know that when the president arrives in a city, that motorcade arrives in its own big cargo plane. He comes with everything he needs, Secret Service, security, and when these cars roll in, somebody has eyes on them all the time. That's another reason, Pat, that they are out at the air base and not at the terminal. It is for security reasons. They want to have room for Air Force One to land, and then if it needs to take off again at a moment's notice for any reason, it can do so without having to go through some of the other air traffic out at the terminal proper.
Right, and you know, with the president, you don't want to take any chances. Hertz is a great company, but you don't want to go to Hertz like a week ago and say, do you have any SUVs we could rent for the president's visit? So I'm sure it costs $1 bajillion to do that, but then again, you're securing the leader of the free world, so I'm sure that it's worth it. Brenda?
Pat, it would be worth bringing people up to speed if they're just joining us. President Biden touched down, I don't know, probably within the last half hour. He's going to be here in Portland talking about infrastructure and also raising money for Oregon Democrats. He just got into his motorcade, so they're waiting to take off right there. You see the Secret Service standing at attention on the side of the car. But let's talk a little bit about the yacht club where he will have this exclusive fundraiser. Some of the tickets are going for $36,000+ just to go there. It's on Marine Drive. I know you live in Northeast Portland and you were just kind of in this area not long ago. It's really quite a juxtaposition between the presidential level of, fancy, swanky and the yacht club and some of the homeless issues that are just in stark relief out there on Marine Drive.
Right, Brenda, the gulf between, the top of the world and flying around in Air Force One and living in a tent on the edge of Marine Drive, that gulf couldn't be larger. And I've ridden my bike out along the bike path. I know a lot of people do that from Portland out towards Troutdale, especially once you get past the 205 bridge heading east. I mean, there are huge encampments out there. And I don't know if those have been moved or if the president will see those, but it is definitely an issue that has been festering for quite a while. And there's also Northeast 33rd intersects with Marine Drive a little bit closer to town, and along 33rd there's about a half mile, perhaps even a mile stretch that is just bumper to bumper with RVs and cars and trucks and campers and garbage strewn everywhere and things burned up. I just went by there a couple of hours ago. There was a RID patrol group there cleaning up some of the garbage, but it is an immense camp. And it's one of the reasons that folks like the city of Portland want to use the back parking lots for the Expo Center for safe, secure parking for RVs and trucks and campers. We would have 24 hours a day security and supervisors there. So far there's been a holdup from the Merck board, which actually controls the Expo Center. Even though the Metro Council owns it, they don't control it. And so we had a story on last night, and it's very interesting to explore that. But yes, the homeless issue and where people are living in our community is a very hot button item, I think, for all sides of the political spectrum. And it will be interesting to see if the president mentions that or if he just sticks to infrastructure and build back better and those sorts of talking points. Brenda?
Pat, with social media and the story in particular, but you guys do a great job of hearing from viewers and having story ideas that you pursue from viewers. What else are they telling you about what they want to see from federal government, from the president's trip here? What are some of the tweets? What are some of the Facebook posts that you guys have been getting?
I'm sorry, Brenda, if you're talking to me, the phone's been cutting in and out, which is how I'm hearing you.
Can you
so
hear me?
I did not hear most of what you just had your question there.
Yeah, no, I know live TV, sometimes it happens that way. Can you hear me okay now, Pat?
Yes, for the moment I do.
Okay, I was
I
just
hear you
asking.
great, and then it goes chot, 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 chot.
I was just asking what viewers are telling you about wanting to hear from the president.
Oh, sure. Well, viewers are very willing to tell us what they're thinking, and it was a real range of things, although the very first email when we asked for viewer feedback was, is the president going to drive by the homeless camps in Portland? Because a lot of people think that's very important for him to see, probably also the garbage and the graffiti, to see what has become of the Rose City that, 4 or 5 years ago, even 3, was a beautiful gem and now doesn't look nearly the same. So that was one thing. There were other questions about, ask the president if he's going to do anything on the federal level to make housing more affordable. It just seems that in places like Portland, the cost of owning a home is just going up through the roof, and folks that are, even middle income have a very hard time saving down payments and making the monthly rent, that sort of thing. Those were some of the main things. There was one person that emailed and wanted us to ask the president about Yemen. This person was upset that he believes that Saudi Arabia has been attacking people in Yemen and thinks that the president should demand that stop. So it was a wide variety of things, but mostly, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the motorcade is taking off, the flags are waving, and they are heading to their next destination. Pat, we appreciate your insights. I know you're going to be out there this afternoon as things as things develop and evolve, but we'll watch the motorcade go and also let people know, our viewers, that again, we will be back about 2 o'clock for the president's speech. We'll be carrying that live. We will also have reaction on KGW News at 4 to everything that has transpired. You can also watch all of our live coverage if you head to kgw.com. And then we will have a wrap up of the president's visit tonight during our evening newscast. So keep it tuned to KGW on air and online.